Okay, good evening from me here in the UK. Fair bit to discuss in regards to all sport, really. Um, Big news coming out of the NHL is that Fanatics is going to be producing the jerseys from the 2024 season onwards on a 10-year deal. Uh, the announcement has been met with a lot of criticism from hockey fans in North America, and I agree. I absolutely agree. I think the NHL got that one terribly, terribly wrong. Um, the quality of Fanatics products is absolutely dreadful. The quality control does not exist, and they fall apart. Like I have one piece of Fanatics merchandise, and it's a Vegas Golden Knights T-shirt from their first year in the league. I don't wear it anymore. It is absolutely the worst production quality of any sports merchandise I've ever bought, and just general sports gear. So I have a lot of sports merchandise and sportswear. Phew, I never come across something so bad. I mean, my Lonsdale Blackburn Rovers shirt is tired and very very old and is now starting to fall apart after I've owned it since 2006. But I'm not willing to purchase any jersey made by Fanatics. The quality is absolutely shocking, absolutely dreadful. I've never come across such poor manufacturing quality. The quality control does not exist, as I say, and they just are dreadful. I mean, I've got a CCM jersey that's like 20 odd years old, and it looks like it was made yesterday in the factory. I've got a Bauer jersey from like 1992, 93. Again, looks like it's just come out the factory. Never gets worn because it's a signed jersey and it's a rare one. I've got I've got sports replicas. I've owned sports replicas from a variety of companies and other sports merchandise. The only reason why I have a Fanatics top um, is because it was a birthday present, and I'm not going to turn down a birthday present because it makes me look like a ungrateful human being. But I haven't worn it in years. It's not comfortable to wear. I mean, the stitching where they've stitched the sleeves and it irritates my skin. The logo is shockingly bad, um, and oh, the NHL have made a blunder with this one, and I think fan reaction may be such that they actually lose a lot of money on merchandise sales. And this is a league that is still heavily gate driven in comparison to the other major leagues in North America. We shall see. We shall see what the jerseys actually end up looking like, quality, um, and then there's the concern from North American fans of ads on jerseys, sponsorship on jerseys, sponsors on jerseys. Um, as a European, as someone from the UK, like, I'm used to having sports jerseys plastered with sponsorship. It's nothing new for us. We've been used to it for 40 odd years over here, longer than I've been alive. We've got used to it. It was really it was a novel idea when it came along, but we're used to it. We are used to it. I'm not saying it's a perfect solution, but yeah, we're used to it. What will be interesting to see is what the pricing's like and the quality. But already the reaction on social media has been very very negative towards the NHL and its decision. And you look at the complaint. I mean, it's just not a good situation. I honestly think the deal to go with Fanatics is a really poor one by the NHL. There are so many other sportswear manufacturers that have a far better reputation, um, that have far better quality control, far better quality, who they could have gone with either North American or European or even Asian manufacturers who produce at a far higher quality than what we're going to get from Fanatics. I mean, I still have my 94, 95 Blackburn Rovers Premier League winning shirt by Asics, and it looks like it was made yesterday. And I wore that a lot as a kid. That had a lot of wear. Never once, as has my mum had when I was a kid, had to repair it. I've still got my 1997 Liverpool alternate third European kit in full. I know it was a kid's kit, but get perfect. Again, looks like it came out the factory yesterday. So the reaction from the sports fans, I think, is justified, and it's not just hockey fans. I mean, anyone who buys anything from Fanatics, um, baseball fans will tell you it's a shocking company with a shocking quality control and shocking customer service. We're going to see a lot of pushback. I think the NHL could end up regretting the 10-year contract. 10-year contract. That's just not a good turn of events, in my opinion. How much the deal's worth, we'll find out in the fullness of time. How much the NHL and Fanatics have agreed upon a deal. It is a big company. It does make a lot of money, but fans aren't overly infused with Fanatics getting the contract, considering over the last 10 or so years the quality of their store replicas is far below the authentic Reebok or CCM or Bauer or even Starter, which was terrible. Coho, all the previous manufacturers, the quality was a lot higher. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see what happens in a year or so's time. My thoughts on the Conte comments. They're similar to Scotty Parker. This is someone who's clearly. The issue with Tottenham is this: when he was hired last season, the disaster that was, where initially, when after the Mourinho sacking, Spurs didn't really have a plan. They sacked a coach who could have brought them silverware on the days before the League Cup final. They've not won silverware since 2008. Then the search for a new manager, they ended up with Nuno, and that was the wrong manager, wrong club. It was the wrong style of football. He didn't have the players in place to do what his style of play dictated. They end up sacking him, and then they go back to Conte. Conte was in the running for the job in the summer, and the talks broke down. Eventually, they circle back and they get Conte in. It hasn't worked. Um, I think are they justified? Well, Scotty Parker was very similar in his criticism of the Bournemouth hierarchy and their transfer policy, and how that club was run with how the transfer money was given out, the targets they missed, the targets they got, the squad they assembled for this season. They have struggled this season. He was sacked very shortly after those comments, within 24 hours. Um, there has been a debate in recent weeks about, well, will they renew Conte's, extend his contract? Will he leave in the summer anyway? But to openly criticise not only the ownership, so Daniel Levy and his superiors, but also the current squad that he has and the culture within the club. Um, yeah, I don't think he's going to be there even before the international break ends. I think he's possibly most likely gone by tomorrow. He might still be there by the weekend, but it's the international break, so no games are being played. They've crashed out of all the cup competitions they were competing in. They've they're nowhere close to winning the league. I think that the league winning window has passed. I think they're circling back on Pochettino, so they're revisiting failure from the past, where he had better morale amongst the players, couldn't get the job done. So they fell short with Pochettino. I don't see him turning it around. But I think the situation with Spurs is deeper than Conte getting frustrated with the direction the club has taken since he was appointed, and it this goes back way before they rebuilt the stadium. This goes way back to, well, the 90s. Honestly, the 90s. This is this. Look at the managers they've had in there, and look at the success the managers have had, apart from Tim Sherwood, at other clubs, in other leagues, or in the same league. It's there's a correlation where managers who've been at Spurs have either won trophies before or after being at Spurs, and it's it's worth noting that clearly, regardless of his contract situation and whether they were going to renew him or not, or whether he's going to move on or not, is irrelevant. I think this has been brewing for some time, but to do it publicly in a press conference with journalists, that's basically saying, sack me then. Scotty Parker did the same thing, was out the door at Bournemouth. I mean, you could argue Bournemouth are a lesser club, they're not as big, they have a smaller fan base, whatever. We've seen it already this season where a manager's openly come out and criticised the players that he has, and the ownership and the recruitment and the culture of a club, and he was sacked within 24, 48 hours. Done, gone, bye-bye, out the door, gone. So it's an interesting one, but if we're going by precedent and what another club has done, yeah, he's not going to be there much longer. And so close to the end of the season as well. Spurs are in a position where they can still qualify for Europe and the Champions League at that from their league position currently. But if this then derails their form and they go on a losing streak and they drop points, they don't get wins, and they fall off, clubs like Newcastle and Brighton will be like, okay, then we'll overtake you. And Newcastle, there's a positivity around Newcastle. Even in defeat, they're still going in the right direction with Eddie Howe and the current ownership and their structures. Brighton, again, they're going in the right direction with the ownership, the investment, the players they have, and the culture at the club. And they're in an FA Cup semi-finals. They're closer to silverware than Spurs, and they could actually win the FA Cup. Now, I think, in my opinion, could be a very, very underrated team in the FA Cup. Do not underestimate them. Manchester United, who've been a shambolic club since Ferguson left, even when Ferguson was there with the Glazes and the ownership model, was still winning trophies when Spurs were winning nothing. They've won a trophy this season, so um, I think it's worrying. It is worrying that the ownership at Spurs are more interested in their profit margin than also being a successful team. That what really harms Spurs. I'm just going to move the laptop and get comfortable because my back is really bad this week. I've done my back in again. What is what is very, very interesting with Spurs is when they rebuilt White Hart Lane, they didn't sign a single new player for 18 months, and I think that is where part of the problem lies. Is in that 18-month period, they didn't. Oh God, needs pillows right. Otherwise, my back is going to be absolutely bugging. That's better. The joys of having a back injury that is not getting any better. No, the oh look, Napoli are going to win Serie A by walking it. Now they could draw the remaining games and still win. With the way they're playing, they're going to win with a nice comfortable cushion. But it is an indictment on the club that players leave Spurs, have success at other clubs, which tells you a lot about the mentality and the culture of the club in the dressing room, the structures. All they care about is the bottom line, making money. Much like Man United before Ten Hag comes along, it's all about the commercial side of the aspect of it. And that stadium rebuild and not signing any new players in that 18-month window cost Pochettino his job. The team was dreadful on the field. You now have Mourinho, who's openly criticised the club's policy of joining the European Super League, internally at least, lost his job. Now, we can argue if Pochettino's a good manager or not. Yes, he's won a few trophies with PSG. Debate that, the French Cup and the French League. But even managers have left the club and won silverware at the next club they're at. So it's not just players who move on from Spurs and have successes, it's managers as well. And that is what's crucial here. So that's quite damning as well. But in reality, I think there's a building frustration that's been brewing at the club for quite some time. I think had Mourinho gone public with his views on the European Super League rather than on the training ground with the players and the direction the club was taking before Conte was signed, I think similar things would have been said. Um, Manchester Derby FA Cup final, it's plausible, but Sheffield United have proven that they are capable of beating Premier League opposition, even though their league form in recent weeks has wobbled. Um, I'm a Blackburn fan. We beat Sheffield United in the league um, the other week. But a cup game, the pressure's off. No one expects Sheffield United to do anything. They are the joker in the pack. Brighton, I think, are playing more attractive football than Manchester United. Manchester United were helped by the fact that Fulham had multiple players sent off um, in order to get to the semi-final. It could be a Brighton Sheffield United final. Haaland's left the Norwegian uh, national side with a groin injury. How serious that is yet to be determined, but he's got 5 weeks to get fit. A lot can happen in that time. Both Manchester United and Man City are fighting on multiple fronts, which will again add to potential injuries, suspensions, and wear and tear on players. It's a 50-50 chance. We have we have a 50% chance of both Manchester United and Man City winning their semi-finals, playing in the final at Wembley. We also have a 50% chance of Sheffield United playing Brighton in the final, or 25% chance. I mean, anything can happen. It's Brighton could make an FA Cup final, and I think with the way Brighton play, um, they could upset the apple cart completely, and then that just throws into a whole load of other things into the mix. It's not guaranteed we'll get a Man City, Man United final, but we've had an all Liverpool based final with Liverpool Everton before. We've so we've had an all London final before, where both clubs are from the same city before. So it's not something that's happened in recent memory, but I'll have to double check that. I don't believe they've met an FA Cup final before, but it is interesting with Man City. I think declining a little bit, and Man United starting to buy into Ten Hag. It is very interesting what possibilities could be. But don't discount Brighton or Sheffield United. Brighton are a very good side. They're competing for Europe. They're playing very well, dominating win over a spirited Grimsby side, which could have been a potential upset. Um, they've got to semi-finals in the FA Cup in recent times. They should not be underestimated, and they're also trending in the right direction. And there's no pressure on Brighton to do anything. So we could see two. I wouldn't say Brighton winning the semi-final would be an upset either. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't be surprised if that actually happens, but we'll see. Napoli, could they win the Champions League? Um, it's possible. Um, it is possible. The club has really transformed itself in the last couple of years. Um, they're dominating the Italian league at the moment, so it's possible. It's not outside the realms of possibility. Uh, we'll have to see what happens. I mean, we've seen stranger things happen in European club football when it comes to the major European competitions, when it comes to an outsider winning a final. No one expected Nottingham Forest to do it twice, way back when in the day. Steaua Bucharest have won it. When Porto won, that was unexpected. So we shall see. Yes, the Championship and League One playoffs are looking a little bit crazy, but Sheffield United aren't guaranteed second in the Championship. Their league form has dropped off. Blackburn and Middlesbrough's league form is outstanding at the moment, and there's a few other clubs in the Championship playoff promotion hunt who are in really good form as well. It's a shame. I think, in my opinion, I think Burnley running away with it, I think, is sort of deflated. I think the Championship this season. I would like it to have been a lot closer at the top between first and the rest, but that hasn't been the case. In saying that, um, some clubs who are in really good form are going to miss out. What is interesting though is Blackburn haven't needed any replays to get to the quarter final of the FA Cup, where we obviously lost to Sheffield United. Sheffield United have also now got to play this extra FA Cup tie, possibly maybe even a final. So that's extra games. Whereas the other clubs in that playoff hunt, that's that little less wear and tear. It's going to be very, very interesting come the playoff time. And some clubs are going to miss out. Again, the debate will come up about the promotion relegation structures and the playoff structure, and that's going to rage on. I don't think there's a perfect system. It's an imperfect system that we have. It's better than the Scottish system, I'll give it that, and the German system, in my opinion. It is, and even the French system. So it's not a perfect system, but it's better than some other leagues in Europe with promotion and relegation. There is that to consider. But as I say, it is not a perfect system. No system is truly perfect. There's always a flaw with a system. I'm worried if we get playoffs, we will crash out to Middlesbrough, Blackburn. We've had a little blip, and we're now 3 points off playoffs. We'll play Sheffield United next. Sheffield United are looking vulnerable at the moment in the league. But I think the reason why they beat us in the FA Cup quarter final is the pressure was off of both sides. It was a more open game. Where the league game, where we beat them 1-0, was a more cagey affair, because it's just have fun, lads. It was a blood and thunder cup tie, the chance to play at Wembley, the chance to potentially make a final. So, in my opinion, that I think dictated the style of play that both teams played at the weekend. In regards to clubs like Norwich, whose form has been a bit wobbly, Sheffield United, while they're in seconds, they're not guaranteed to get seconds, and their form has hit a bit of a wobble in the league. It's not as consistent. They're dropping points. They're actually getting defeats, and teams below them currently chasing playoffs or in playoffs have got better form. So anything can happen between now and the end of the season. As a Blackburn fan, we are in a better position this season than the last couple of seasons. We've done better than I expected. We've had our blip in the middle of the season. We've had our fade. We've come back towards the end at the right time, which is a good time to hit form. Obviously, in a perfect world, you want to get automatic promotion to save the potential of the lottery that is the playoffs. But look, at the end of the day, as I say, imperfect system. No system is 100% perfect. There's going to be detractors of any system. Some people say it should just be the top three should get promoted, and the bottom three should get relegated. And then we have the debate about League Two and the National League about how many teams go up and go down. And should we expand that? Again, there is no perfect system, which, in my opinion, is I think that's the interesting thing. Luton in the Premier League or Luton in the top flight. Yeah, that would be. Well, Millwall could make the Premier League. Yeah, and they were once a top flight side just in the 80s, just before I was born. So Luton and Millwall have actually been in the top flight before. And Luton have got a new stadium on the horizon. Millwall have an underrated size fan base in London. I don't think people realise how big the Millwall fan base actually is. Again, there are so many permutations. There are so many potential outcomes. It is the business end of the season. Squad wear and tear, injuries, suspensions, a loss of form. Sheffield United beating Blackburn actually went against the form book in the last 2 months. So there are so many aspects to the end of the season. And as I say, there is no perfect outcome. There is no perfect system doing things. And again, we will have to see how it all plays out and who finishes where in the regular season, and then we'll enter the playoffs in that vein. What is interesting is both Sheffield United and Burnley have transfer embargoes put upon them. as do Reading, as do Huddersfield. I mean, Wigan are about to go bust, so there is a concern for me about the off-field financials of English football. If Burnley are going to get promoted, the fact they have a transfer embargo is a massive concern. Sheffield United, most likely, they've got to find a bit of form in the league, but the cup run might inject that momentum back into their league campaign. Also under a transfer embargo for failure to pay a transfer fee in a timely fashion. Now that will probably be resolved come the end of the season in the off season. But two of the top half of the table are currently under transfer embargoes. Reading are facing a points deduction and a transfer embargo. Huddersfield are in a similar position, and Wigan are just in full financial meltdown. Well, when Dave Whelan, I mean, I did a video on Wigan Athletic when Dave Whelan and his family sold the club for what I thought was pennies. They sold the club for just £20 million. Now we're going to circle back to the director's test, the fit and proper persons test, which clearly is not fit for purpose. Yes, you could argue the COVID pandemic has had an impact, especially on clubs that are more gate driven. Which, since Wigan have fallen out of the Premier League, they are far more reliant on gate revenue. I have concerns about Wigan. Wigan could be the next Derby County or the next Bury. I hope that doesn't happen. The Football League, it would be a disaster if that was to happen. And it'd be highly embarrassing for the EFL if that was to happen. Well, to English football in general, I think the Derby County situation was very embarrassing. The Bury situation was highly damaging. I believe Southend United are now safe for now. I think payments were made to HM Revenue and Customs. They avoided a further winding up order from the High Court, but they're in dire trouble. It will be interesting to see what happens in the summer with Southend United. I think Oldham are in trouble as well. Scunthorpe are in trouble. There are a lot of clubs in serious trouble, both currently in the Football League and outside. And it wouldn't surprise me if some Premier League clubs are sweating on their finances without publicly saying we've got problems. The current footballing regulations when it comes to the financial sides and the governance side is, in my opinion, hasn't been fit for purpose for 3 decades. I think other sports are feeling the pinch as well. And what is interesting, I mean, crazy how many Lions Club puts on. Look, at the end of the day, that was in a very avoidable situation. I think the Football League has and the FA have definitely enabled, and the Premier League to a certain extent have definitely enabled bad ownership to flourish and continue. I think we need to look at the financial auditing of clubs on a more regular basis, all clubs. I think there needs to be more transparency in ownership models and the financial systems. And yes, UEFA are bringing in these new financial ownership rules. How far down the football pyramid they end up applying is another thing. But they've basically admitted financial fair play has never worked. It's too weak a system. It's too easily exploited. And while they're onto Man City's case right now and PSG, and they've done AC Milan, in all occasions they've appealed to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and they've had their bans reduced and their punishments reduced. But Man City are still under investigation. Now, this may take a while. What the Man City situation reminds me of is the Saracens salary cap saga that went on for several years before they were finally punished, fined, and docked points, and basically thrown out of the Rugby Premiership. Same with Leicester Tigers. So Rugby Union's got its own money issues and ownership issues and rule breaking and breaches. So football's not the only sport. But to me, I have grave concerns about the financial models of professional sport. It's not just a football problem. It's not just a rugby union problem or a rugby league problem or an AFL problem, for example, Aussie rules. It's not just the major leagues in North America because there are teams with money issues in the major leagues in North America who are bailed out because of the franchise model by the league, basically. But I look at it and so many issues are at play. Oh, the Supersonics, they got moved. Um, they ended up being relocated, but the, they were badly run off the court. Multiple teams have had money issues. Now, the team that obviously is in the spotlight in North America right now is the Arizona Coyotes. They've got their vote on their building plan in a couple of weeks. I believe at the beginning of May. It's most likely going to pass. It will pass. It's just what outcome the arena and the surrounding entertainment district, what it looks like, will have a part to play. But they're going to get a new arena. Um, but as I say, as soon as they get that new arena, the relocation talk disappears, and the NHL does not want to relocate any of the 32 franchises. What makes Arizona interesting is very similar to the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes back in the days. They're in a non-traditional location, and the traditional fans from the traditional locations believe hockey shouldn't exist in the desert or in subtropical Florida or in the Carolinas. It shouldn't happen. What is interesting is all these teams have got very well. Arizona will have a new arena. We know this in Tempe. Carolina have finally got good ownership and they're now winning games. They're making playoffs. Florida, they've got a very, very generous lease on the building they're in. Um, so it's an interesting one, but there are teams in the major leagues who are hemorrhaging money in North hemorrhaging. Have I ever seen a Premier League relegation battle like this? 97, 98, 97, 98 season, where I think all the relegated teams got well over 35 points. I think one got 35. There was I think one team got 38. So the 97, 98 season was ridiculous at the bottom. I think there was one season a team went down with 40 points or close to. So this one, there are some very bad teams at the bottom in relation to how they're playing and their form, but the points totals are really close together. But no, the 97, 98 season for me is the closest in comparison to what we're seeing now. And that was a season that Everton were in the shit, ironically. Very similar to last season as well. A good team will go down. A good team will go down. Um, who goes down, I don't know, but a good team will get relegated. Whether they get back at the first attempt is anyone's guess. Look how long it took Nottingham Forest to get back. Look how long it took Leeds to get back. Sheffield Wednesday have never been back. They're two leagues below. Blackburn, we haven't got back yet, although we're looking more likely as time goes on. Um, so yeah, potentially a big team could go down and could stay down for a long time. Such is the nature. Uh, and some teams have surprised with their poor form that are higher up the table. Um, so, oh no, it will be financially. There are certain clubs whose ownership models are not designed to be in the bottom half of the table, let alone in a relegation fight. Um, and this is where we need to look at um, again bringing in salary caps and spending caps and producing being rewarded for bringing youth talent through your system. And this is not just an English problem. This is across the game, across Europe. Um, we need to reward clubs for nurturing their own talent through their own academies. While not banning transfers, I don't think that's the wrong word, but I think a transfer spending cap and a salary cap. And unfortunately, a handful of clubs, Barcelona and Real Madrid, for example, PSG is another one, um, are very resistant to that. Basically, any club that signed up for the European Super League, for example, is very resistant to curtailing spending, um, because they believe if they curtail their spending, they won't win trophies. Yeah, a lot of them spent big money and not won a lot. Um, but then you look at clubs like Chelsea are in a transition season with new ownership, and new manager. Liverpool are having a really poor year, and we know players like Firmino, for example, are moving on. Sadio Mane moved on last summer. There's the rumours circulating about Man United about potential sale or partial share sales by the Glazers giving up a stake or full ownership. Uh, Chelsea are safe, but I think what what will Chelsea look like under Todd Bowley? Are they going to continue to decline? Has Will Graham Potter still be there this time next year, let alone at the end of the season? Will they get rid of him in the summer? Will he have a full summer off season with the players? Because he was a mid-season transplant, Tuchel was sacked. What does Chelsea look like? What does Liverpool look like? Will Conte be gone by the weekend? I believe Conte's gone before the international break is over. There are so many questions that need answering, and for me, I believe we're going to see some managerial turnaround. Like Roy Hodgson being reappointed to Crystal Palace in his mid-70s. That is a ridiculous decision. Slightly off topic, but I remember when a lot of us were convinced Burnley could get double relegated, potentially go into financial issues. Look, I think hiring Vincent Company has been a masterstroke. Um, the fact they've had a transfer embargo placed upon them is a problem. So financially, their ownership model, very similar to Manchester United, is not sustainable long term. But we'll see what happens with Burnley in the summer if the transfer embargo is still in place and whether they can actually put a side together that can compete in the Premier League next season. That is the concern. Now, hypothetically, if Blackburn win the playoff final, we make more money than Burnley will by winning the championship. So that's more money into the coffers. We've got, so there are things to consider. It was the right decision to appoint Vincent Company. I think it was the wrong decision to sack Sean Dyche. That's, again, personal opinion there. And while they're top of the championship, and obviously our predictions were proven wrong, and thankfully so, I think they're in a tougher position now off the field than what they were when they got relegated. I'm not sure Burnley will be financially equipped. Yes, they'll get promoted to put a team together that will survive in the Premier League with the transfer embargo. Their youth system is not as good as other youth systems with other championship clubs. Their youth system is not as good as some of the other Premier League clubs. It used to be a very, very good youth system. Back in the day, they produced a lot of talent back in the day. It's not on the same standard anymore. And I think their finances could be a massive, massive problem for them. They could find it tough. And I think Vincent Company has done very well this season, and he did very well at Anderlecht. It's going to be a very tough season next year for Burnley. I think some other clubs in the Championship are already better prepared for a life in the Premier League than Burnley are. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, they've got the structures of a Premier League club, but the current ownership led to them being relegated. They weren't willing to spend money, and now they've got a transfer embargo. So we'll see what happens. Is Roy Hodgson the right man for Palace? I think that's a ludicrous decision to sack Vieira. Um, Ludicrous decision to sack Vieira, really poor, and to bring back a guy who basically retired because he was in his 70s, who then was appointed by Watford, which I thought was bizarre. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Roy Hodgson, for everything he's done in the game, which is fantastic, and he's spent like 50, 60 years managing, ridiculous, 60. He's in his 70s. He's above retirement age. This is a ridiculous decision by Palace. I don't. I think that could massively backfire on them. And I think that yeah, really, really bizarre decision. Um, really bizarre decision. Um, I can't see it working for them. If Anderlecht were in the Dutch league, how well do you think they would do? Well, I think Standard Liège might, and Club Bruges, two of the other big clubs in Belgian football, um, might have a few eyebrows raised about that because you devalue the Belgian competition. I understand the question. I think it'll be interesting. I looked at the history of the Dutch league, and it's actually a very competitive league historically. It's not just Ajax and Feyenoord and PSV. There's a lot of clubs that have won trophies in the Dutch league system. Um, but the quality of both Belgian and Dutch domestic football is a lot less than what it was. And the Dutch league is that little bit better than the Belgian league. Um, I don't know actually, but we've had this question about like Rangers and Celtic, how they would compare, and fight in the English league system. And it's a difficult one. I mean, there are proposals. There's been plans put on the table, proposals put on the table to merge the two league systems in Belgium and Holland together, um, which would mean basically getting the two FAs to cooperate. Um, so it's one of them. But you look at it, and you look at Belgian sport, very similar to French sport, and where sports fans invest their money. Um, and the sports market in Belgium is different to Holland, significantly different to Holland. It's a more broad sports market, and the population and then is isn't it? Belgian sports fans are very very interesting. Yes, they're very very passionate football fans. Um, they've got some brilliant historical clubs. They produce some of the best players European and world football's ever seen. Um, but the sports fan, it's very interesting in France and Belgium, and to a certain extent Holland, with what sports people follow, and the amount of money sports fans are willing to spend on their team, and the culture. Uh, Very interesting. But it'll be interesting to see how they would do hypothetically, but it's a hypothetical, and life isn't based on hypotheticals; it's based on realities. Um, and it'll be interesting to see how fans would feel about potential, because there is that potential for a merger of the two leagues. Um, Maddie Hinge, you could argue that, yes, you could argue um, for field hockey fans that yes, she's a very recognisable face. To the wider public, not a name many sports fans would have heard of outside of field hockey or the Olympics or the Commonwealths. It's not a name um, for your casual sports fan that you would know. Um, there are athletes in certain sports that transcend the sport they're in, that have where the average sports fan who may not follow that particular sport know who they are. So you have your Johnny Wilkinsons in rugby union, or your Dan Carter, for example, or your Jonah Lomu, I think is the best one, the first rugby union superstar. You have your Pelés, for example, in football, when the World Cup was, I wouldn't say in its infancy, but became the dominant sport globally. You have your Michael Jordans in the NBA. You have your Wayne Gretzky's in the ice hockey, who transcend their sport, and you know who that person is on a global audience. Obviously, Tiger Woods in golf, Lewis Hamilton, and this is where I think field hockey fails as a sport. Is how many sports fans who are maybe casual sports fans or just general public who may not be the most engaged with sport, um, who would know her? Whereas those individuals that I mentioned, like the Williams sisters in tennis, for example, Anna Kournikova, for example, a lot of people know who she is for not only her tennis career but her modelling career. Certain athletes transcend their sport to a global audience. In Maddie Hinch's case, if you're not a field hockey fan, many people won't have a clue who she is. And this is where field hockey as an international sport could do better in selling itself to a wider audience and getting more eyes on their product. So there is that. Real Betis have been in Europe multiple times. I wouldn't call them an emerging side. Real Betis. Um, they're a very well known team. Um, they've had a lack of success. They should have had more success, but they've had success with winning silverware. They've won La Liga, for example. They've won the Copa del Rey twice in my lifetime. Um, they've not been as successful as other Spanish clubs, partly because their finances have been a mess. They've gone bankrupt 3 times. They've almost gone out of business 3 times. Brighton Hove Albion, however, yeah, that is a fantastic story. Um, I think Deportivo Alves would be a better example of a flash in the pan Spanish side getting into Europe for a little bit and then disappearing. Deportivo La Coruña would be another one. Flash in the pan success story disappearing. Villarreal, I think, is the example you really want to use because their only major trophy, their only trophy to date, is the Europa League. I would say Villarreal would be a good example. Hoffenheim is another one. Yes, you could use that. Wolfsburg would be another one. They've had a lot of European football in the last decade and a half. Weren't successful before then. But again, you look at the Shakhtar. No, they've been regular Champions League qualifiers for a very long time, even before the current political and social problems between the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Shakhtar have been um, qualified for Europe for years. Yeah, I mean, look, I think, yeah, Maddie Hinch. I mean, look, firstly, she's a goalkeeper, and in certain sports, goalies got that goalkeeper position. They're not the star player. The star player is the one who scores all the goals, creates all the goals, or tries, whatever. And again, as I say, outside the Commonwealths and the Olympics, most people don't watch field hockey unless it's a Commonwealth Games or an Olympic Games. People just don't watch. That's the casual sports fan who goes, "Oh, it's the Olympics." Now, that's part of the problem. Is the media deal both domestically and internationally for field hockey isn't anywhere near as good as what it could be. Sponsorships, getting the athletes on advertising campaigns, marketing. This is where field hockey as an international sport really fails massively. But as I say, it's easy for me to go field hockey. I played the sport. I was a goalkeeper. I enjoyed the sport. We're very good at the sport. The sport, however, is not good at marketing itself outside of its very niche fan base. And that is a massive problem. The sport is not good at marketing itself to potential new fans, broadcasters, and sponsors. to grow the product. Field hockey is dreadful at that, absolutely dreadful, or doesn't do it very well. Um, Again, use of social media, use of the mainstream media, getting sponsors on board, advertising campaigns, engaging with the sporting public. Because it's a very niche, I wouldn't say it's a niche sport, but the fan base is quite limited. Other team sports have really cornered sections of the sporting fan base. Is there an example of large European sides that have gone down the divisions or gone into liquidation? Loads, loads of examples. Hamburg, for example, are not in the Bundesliga right now. Uh, 1860 Munich are well down the divisions. Palermo in Italy. Deportivo La Coruña are in, I think, the third tier of Spanish football right now. There are loads of sides. Saint Etienne in France. So there are multiple examples, multiple, um, where once very, very good sides are now all over the place. Steaua Bucharest are a mess. I'm trying to think, there are some big clubs that have really imploded, really imploded. Deportivo La Coruña, I think, is one that are now in the third tier of their domestic league system. Palermo had to reform, as did Parma. There are a few clubs out there, yes. Field hockey needs to have a popular professional league in India. Yeah, that would definitely help, at least with the Indian sports fans. They love the sport on a level with cricket. Um, Whether international players would be willing to go to India to play is another thing, and relocate. That's the problem, is getting players to be willing to relocate to the subcontinent on a semi-permanent basis. That's the issue. Um, but it's an idea. I am surprised those with the money men in India haven't come up with that idea. Um, but again, field hockey is a team sport which isn't fully professional. It's very niche. A lot of the players come from university, upper middle class backgrounds. So already you're losing that working class sports fan because of the background of the players and the origins of the sport, and engaging the mainstream audience, which are generally working people. Um, and it's seen as a stereotypical middle to upper class university sport, which is what and private school. That's basically what it is. Perception. Um, a lot of working class kids will never have played field hockey at any level, or just working class people, unless they went to a grammar school, which is, you know, rare in this country, and then it is seen as a university sport, and so it's seen as a middle class sport. It has that stereotype, and that's very hard to break. This is where rugby union, when it turned professional, is still trying to break down the stereotype that the players are all public school boys who went to private school, um, and they're all middle class. There are some working class lads like Ellis Genge and Carl Sinclair, for example, who do play rugby union um, for club and country. But the perception is, both here and obviously overseas in the form of, well, the Commonwealth nations like New Zealand and Australia, is that it's a posh boy sport. The same applies for field hockey. And the problem is field hockey is further down the track because it isn't professional, and it has a much smaller fan base anyway than rugby union ever had before professionalism. That it doesn't attract the crowds for internationals that rugby union does. It doesn't have the TV deal that rugby union does. Rugby union had a great TV deal before 1995 with broadcasters, so already it's on the back foot, and that makes it very difficult to engage a sports audience with the majority of sports fans of more lower middle class, working class backgrounds, who may or may probably most likely won't have been to university, and a lot of them would not have played the sport at some point. So already you've got that disengagement with potential fans, and to try and engage with potential fans when they've already got established sports like rugby league or football or ice hockey or cricket, because cricket does have a very big working class fan base and player base. When you're trying to engage, um, it's difficult. Yeah, look, I live not too far from. I used to work in Surrey and live in Surrey on the right the edge of West London. I do agree. Yes, I am very close to. I wouldn't say the birthplace of the sport, but one of the player base heartlands. And yes, I agree with that. But unfortunately, I can't think of many people off the top of my head right now, apart from those I went to school with, who played the sport. I physically can't. Um, and I'm drawing a blank. Since my school days, I've not got it. It's that's part of the problem. Speaking of Surrey, I'm assuming your local Bracknell Town are doing well in the second round of the FA Cup. They made the first round of the FA Cup, and they were from Berkshire. They didn't make the second round; they made the first round. No, well, yeah, Surrey's just down the road from where I live. So is Hampshire as well. Yeah, I, when we talk about heartlands of sport, where a lot of the players or coaches or fans come from, yes, that there are a lot of field hockey players who were brought up in southwest London and Surrey and the home counties who've gone on to represent Great Britain or England at international level. Um, but it's still seen as I say, a university sport and a very middle class sport. It's not seen as something that the lower middle classes and what the general population would play. Um, Worst county for football in England? Rutland. There you go. Rutland, the smallest county in England, and I don't think they haven't got a single professional team in any sport. County town is Uppingham. There you go. Isle of Wight is technically a ceremonial county, but is bigger than Rutland. There you go. Apart from Rutland, shit, this is a real difficult one. It's really difficult. Like Cheshire's got clubs, right? Like Shropshire's got Shrewsbury. Hereford. Herefordshire. There you go. Herefordshire. There you go. Hereford Football Club or Hereford United are in the non-league, so Herefordshire. I had to think on that one. Isle of Wight, Rutland, and Herefordshire. There you go. There you go. Hereford is not really a sporting county, if we're being brutally honest. It's a very rural part of the country. It's a very poor part of the country. There's not a lot of disposable income. It's very rural. Very few urban centres. And apart from Hereford, I can't think of a single. Obviously, there are non-league teams, but I can't. Am I going by historical or current? Well, Rutland was absorbed by Leicestershire for about 60 years and became a county again. I'm being really facetious. Um, the Isle of Wight, a lot of its administration is done by Hampshire, but it's technically a county historically. Somerset's another one. There you go. Somerset's another one, but then you've got Bristol, which is Avon, which is technically Somerset. We're getting really technical. Wiltshire, that's Swindon. Berkshire's Reading, Maidenhead. No, Surrey's got Woking. It's really different. No, Sussex, Kent. No, Kent's got clubs. Bournemouth, yeah, it's traditionally Hampshire, but it's now Dorset for county boundary changes. It's really weird. Blame the 70s. The 70s was a really weird time for local government, fiddling everything. Because round here, there's debate on whether Bournemouth is in Hampshire or Dorset. Traditionally Hampshire, currently Dorset. My uncle works for Dorset County Council, so what can I say? um, that's a very interesting question. Like the worst area for professional football where players come from. I think Herefordshire and Rutland and the Isle of Wight, you could say, and to a certain extent Somerset if you discount Bristol, and we're not including Cornwall. There's a few counties which, but I think Rutland and Herefordshire for me would be up there for counties that don't have great sporting pedigrees at anything because they're very rural, low populations, not many urban centres, um, lack of infrastructure anyway, um, and people at Bournemouth, I don't think they care. I really don't think they care who they pay their council tax to or whatever because um, I just don't think they care. Shropshire's got Shrewsbury Town as a football club at the professional level, and AFC Telford. So there's that. But no, in my opinion, certain areas of England and to a extent in Scotland and obviously Wales um, are very, very rural and they don't have big urban areas to support professional sport. What North Wales is Broughton, Airbus, Carnarvon, Wrexham, Southampton, Cardiff, Swansea, Merthyr Tydfil. Got a friend who lives near Merthyr, in Ebbw Vale. Newport. It's an interesting one. You got Rill. Is Crewe classed as Shropshire? I think isn't Crewe in Cheshire? I think Crewe's in Cheshire. Crewe's a shithole. Been there. Never again. Ugh, not doing that again. I think Crewe's Chestershire. Cheshire. Merthyr Tydfil. Near Ebbw Vale and Tredegar, Wales, where everyone's bloody unemployed. Don't crack. um, but but jokes aside, there are certain areas of the country that I think have Crewe's in Cheshire. I'm from Cheshire, but Crewe is in Cheshire. Um, Mark Williams, bloody hell. Dapeth. Dapeth. Mr. Jones. You got Simon Jones. You got David Jones. Martin Jarvis. Oh, don't. I've actually imagine Celtic and Rangers in the English divisions. We've discussed that it would kill Scottish football completely. There's a reason why the Welsh domestic league is so bad. Is the biggest clubs don't play in the Welsh league; they play in the English league system. You just kill Scottish football. There you go. No, Ray Reardon I think had a bigger impact on the Welsh psyche at the time he was playing. Did Ray Reardon. Um, Mark Williams, fantastic player, not on the same level as Ray Reardon. Even I know who Ray Reardon is, and he was playing before my time. So the impact Ray Reardon has is far bigger than Mark Williams. Um, Merthyr in the English divisions, Gosport have Borough have to travel 4 hours to go. Wow. Again, it's the decision that the club have taken. Um, they believe there's more financial gain and more profit to be had if they were to make profit to stay in the English league system. Colwyn Bay, obviously, they made the decision to go back to the Welsh league system, and I don't think it's helped them financially. Um, but as I say, like You take Celtic and Rangers out of the Scottish League system, that means the biggest club in Glasgow is Partick. The second biggest club would be Queen's Park. You've just killed Scottish football. You've just killed Scottish football. Um, and Welsh football domestically outside of those in the English league system is crap. It's crap. So be careful what you wish for. Um, but you ask Swansea and Cardiff fans, would you rather play the English league system? I'm Wrexham fans for that matter, or the Welsh league system, and they'll 100% say we're happy in the system we're in because that's what they've grown up with. But can't we see Cardiff, Swansea, Wrexham, Newport making it? No. The financial devastation that would cause those clubs would they'll go out of business. They would go out of business. Um, and the quality of the Welsh national side would go um, go down the Swanee straight away. You wouldn't produce the talented players that are currently being produced, um, and the money would dry up, and the league would die. Newport maybe, but the other three, especially Wrexham, no, Newport, I think are very very happy in the English league system. They get great crowds, and they're financially a lot better off with where they are. If they were to swap to the Welsh league system, they've just killed themselves. And it's not just the fact it's a football club; it's the community, and then you've got to think about the people who work for the football club, not just the players and the coaching staff. You've got to think about the tea lady, the club shop, all that gone, out of work. And in South Wales, being out of work is more likely than you being in work in parts of South Wales. It is vital. Like Wrexham falling out of the Football League had a devastating impact on the town. Um, it cannot understate the importance of being in the Football League. Too close to Cardiff. It makes for a good rivalry, doesn't it? Because Cardiff are struggling at the moment, and Newport, in theory, could end up in League One very soon. So could Cardiff. I mean, imagine that as a rivalry match. It would sell out both home and away. Newport be a fantastic money maker. The economics of South Wales is very Cardiff Swansea centric. I will say that. No doubt Newport has historic rivalry English club like Bristol. Yes, yes, there is that historical aspect um, to Newport County in the rivalries with some of the English clubs across just down the M4. That cannot be understated. And yeah, you take those Welsh clubs out of the English league system, you, I think you devalue Welsh. I mean, I don't know. They would struggle. They would struggle to make money. If only four of them were really at a top level, they would there would be serious financial consequences. The Welsh domestic game is just not good enough um, at this current time. Wakefield, Guildford, and Canterbury. It's interesting. Well, Kent is the birthplace of cricket, so there's your Canterbury one. There's Wakefield Rugby League, the Wildcats, Trinity Wildcats, and Guildford. Ironically, the only professional sports team in Guildford is the ice hockey team. So you've just summed up why. Oh, Guildford doesn't have over 100,000 people. The borough does, but the town doesn't. But the borough of Guildford does. But that's the three professional sports. Canterbury's got cricket with Kent County Cricket Club. Wakefield's got the Trinity Wildcats Rugby League Club, and Guildford's got the Guildford Flames Ice Hockey Club. So there's your professional sports there, done, sorted. Um, so let that sink in, and all three teams that I mentioned play in the top league. in their sport in the country. So there you go, and have internationals playing for them. So I've just summed up why those three locations don't have a professional football team. Um, why they don't have a professional football team is you know up there. Um, well, the Welsh league is the worst in Europe, worse than Gibraltar and San Marino. That again, that sums up Welsh domestic sport. This is not just a football discussion with Wales. Look at rugby union and rugby league, the mess that the domestic game of all sports in Wales, apart from Glamorgan in county cricket, is facing. Um, the Welsh rugby union domestic league is a shambles, which is why we have the provinces, the regions, which are a shambles. Rugby league, I think there's one or two Welsh rugby league sides that are so bad and are badly run into shambles. And it's played out with the international teams that they can put on the field. Um, so it's making that what you will. Yes, obviously we've got Forest Green Rovers in League One, although they're bottom of League One, about to get relegated back to League Two, which is a bit of a chuckle. Yeah, look, I mean they've got plans to double or have a new stadium that's double the size up the road, but I can't see that being sustainable when they can't even fill their current stadium to capacity. So, know, Gary Dale Vince is a lunatic. But there we go. Where would the Welsh national side be without the big four clubs? Even worse than it currently is now. Um, even worse than it currently is now. I mean, how Wales have produced so many great players over the years with only four real professional clubs is ridiculous. And a lot of them have come through English clubs' systems um, to end up playing for Wales. The domestic league system in Wales is shambolic. Um, and you could argue part of the problem is things like the Premier League and the current TV deal, but Welsh economics as well. The economics of Wales as a whole, the GDP of Wales is not great. Um, the sport in Wales is too Cardiff Swansea centric. What happens to the Welsh national football team now? Well, Gareth Bale's gone. Aaron Ramsey's now the new international captain. Um, it's what needs to happen is if Wrexham do take that leap to the Football League, which I believe they will, there'll be a new generation of players coming through that want to aspire to be better. I think your Ramsey, your Allens, and Bales, and your Robson Carnews, and all that have had an impact over the last decade and a half. That have encouraged your Ampadu's, for example, your Nico Williams to carry on playing when they were youth players and fulfill that dream of making the big time. And that there are some green shoots there where there's that potential to kick on. But they've qualified for major tournaments, which is a plus, which again inspires the next generation of kids to go. I don't want the egg shaped ball. I want the round ball. The problem is the rugby union side are in a shambles right now. There's money problems with the game in Wales. The rugby league side, a handful of professional players, and then the club game is dead. Cricket, you got Glamorgan, that's it. And a couple of the border counties do play in the lower levels of English cricket. But in reality, it's Glamorgan and they hoover up all the Welsh talent that end up playing the game. But they're very good sides, by the way. Got the Cardiff Devils in ice hockey, who are a very good side. They hoover up a bit more talent in the South Wales area. But in reality, Welsh sport is in not a great place and hasn't been for a long time. Um, What does a talented young Welsh sportsman choose? Obviously, rugby union is the sport that a lot of Welsh kids want to play, and a lot more Welsh people do play at a community level. The finances of the sport in Wales are shambolic, and the governance is shambolic, and the scandals surrounding the Welsh Union are shambolic, and it's just not a healthy atmosphere. Um, the Cardiff Devils are a very good professional ice hockey team with a very good um, structured system with their affiliated clubs at the lower level. But it says Cardiff in the name. It's not the Welsh Devils, it's Cardiff. So that's a bit niche, but they're very successful. You've got the big four Welsh football clubs that play in the English league system of five if you count Merthyr Tydfil, and they got that connection, and Swansea and Cardiff had success with the FA Cup and League Cup, and then you've obviously got Wrexham with the old Welsh Cup back in the day before they were excluded. So there's that history there with them and that connection, and they have really good crowds. Players come through their systems who've gone on to represent Wales at international level. But no, it's not a. I don't know what you tell a young, talented, young Welsh sportsman. Um, they're very likely to end up in an English club system, be it rugby union, rugby league, or football or cricket, because the domestic side of things in Wales just doesn't have the finance. Not much better. Last year, there was a Welsh basketball league for the first time. A team from the Wirral entered to make enough teams, and they won it. So if a team from Birkenhead, basically, or Tranmere, wins a Welsh league, that tells you what you need to know. The Wirral. I mean, that sums up the problems. The New Saints, for example, are an English club that play in the Welsh Football League system that win all the time. Sums up the problems that Welsh professional sport has. Um, just not on the same level. Um, and as I say, the best talent goes across the border to go into their youth systems. Yeah, Deeside. Deeside's part of the Wirral. It's in Flintshire. It's near Rill. Yeah, it's Deeside. The Deeside Dragons is the semi-professional ice hockey team. That's near Rill. It's Flintshire. It's a shithole. It's Rill. Deeside Dragons are in Wales. Yes, it's just the other side of the border from Chester. God, I know so much pointless information. But no, jokes aside, Welsh rugby is in shambles. Football team is one or two born stars mixed in with English mercenaries, and can't think of big Welsh cricket players. Geraint and Simon Jones are the ones off the top of my head, and they both retired, so I can't think of any current Welsh talent that's in the Test side at the moment. I think Geraint, Simon Jones were the last Welsh players I can think of that were world class players who were test level players. Um, and we're going back a good 15 years there, so that sums up where Ian Botham technically is Welsh. Technically, his son plays for Wales. I forget what sport his son plays in, but Ian Botham's son is a Welsh international in some sport. I forget. Was it rugby league, rugby union, or cricket, football? I think Ian Botham's son represents a Welsh national side. Yeah. So Ian Botham, Simon Jones, and Geraint Jones are the ones I can think of off the top of my head who uh, have Welsh in them. But as I say, at the end of the day, I don't know how we got into Welsh professional sport, but yes, the rugby union and rugby league, rugby union is in a complete and utter shambles. Their rugby league the less said about the better. And apart from Glamorgan in cricket and as I say, the big four professional clubs that I've done the club histories on, there's not a lot of going for 'em. Should no, they wouldn't survive. They wouldn't get Test status. They've only got one professional county. It wouldn't get Test status. Um, they've only got one ground that meets Test standard, um, and they wouldn't have enough players to form a side that would be competitive. Not only they've got players, but there wouldn't be enough players of a high enough quality to form a Test side that would be competitive enough to win a Test match. Would Wales benefit from having a football league team in the west like Aberystwyth or Holyhead? I think Llanelli might be a good shout because they've got facilities at Llanelli with a stadium that's of a decent capacity. Um, you could get a team like Rill to go into the football league because they're very, very close to the English border with Chester and Tranmere and Crewe. Um, but again, Aberystwyth's a tiny place. It might have a university, but it's a really small place. Doesn't have the population to be sustainable financially, and it's really hard to get to Aberystwyth. Um, really hard to get to Aberystwyth. Um, but look, we're spitballing here. There was a reason why the Welsh clubs in the English league system are the ones they are, is because they're the big urban areas. Apart from the Nestle, they're the big urban areas, and there's enough people there to make it a sustainable model. There's enough disposable income in those areas to make it a sustainable model. Um, and I mean, the Nestle is rugby, but the way the Welsh Union have gone around with their regional four regions very badly in my book. Um, there's a reason why Welsh clubs are crap. Um, there's a reason why the national side is a shambles. No matter what Warren Gatton says in press conferences, we will be okay by the World Cup. They really won't. Um, there's a reason why the union is under so much pressure with their culture, their structures, and the direction the sport's taking. Um, well, again, we're spitballing here, saying this one should enter the English league system, or that one should. They would have to start at the bottom rung of the ladder, and that would mean, and if we do go to the Welsh clubs join the English league system, how would you restructure the non-league structures, the regional leagues, to fit them in? Bearing in mind, right at that level, there is not the money at the moment. To sustain it because it'll be a loss-making venture. And in order to make the professional levels, if you're making a massive loss, you're just asking to fail. I mean, they aren't even competing in the Welsh League. At least they could potentially get more money. Yeah, true. That is a point, but I think the issues that Welsh sport domestically is facing is massive. It's a very rural country for the most part, apart from the southeast corner. There just isn't the disposable income or the infrastructure in place there. Um, that has been suggested that the Welsh teams join the English system. Whether that's a solution to the financial issues that Welsh rugby has is um, a hypothetical question. Um, Aberdare used to be one of the 6 Welsh clubs in the Football League. Aberdare Athletic, uh, again, used to be is is the answer there. Used to be is the statement. Um, I don't know. I mean, look, we can also debate the struggles of the Scottish clubs as well, and Scottish football, and the decline of the national side of Scotland. I mean, I think the UEFA coefficient does harm um, uh, the, the the Welsh and Scottish league systems, but also population size, population density, disposable income, um, transport infrastructure, TV deals, sponsorship. Are Gretna the only Scottish club to enter English football? Um, I think there's a couple of English clubs in Scottish football as well. I don't know. Well, Gretna's an interesting case because the town's right on the border, and the old Gretna obviously went bust. I don't know on that one. I think there might be another one, but Berwick Rangers play in the Scottish system. They're currently in the Lowland League, but they were in the Scottish Professional League, now in the Lowland League. The Welsh professional rugby clubs had joined the English Premiership years ago. They'll be in a better state now, in my opinion. No, Annan Athletic are still in the Scottish League system. I will be doing a video on Annan Athletic and some of the other Scottish clubs in the lower levels because it's really interesting. Um, it's hypothetical if the Welsh clubs had entered, or the Welsh provinces had entered the English, joined with the English Premiership or the English League system, whether they would be in a much better position because then you have to change the English domestic league structure to accommodate them, which is another debate entirely whether that's feasible and practical. Um, but the possibilities there, but then you look at the state of rugby union in England and the finances there, it's not guaranteed they would have been better than they currently are. You may have made the financial contagion worse. You've already had 2 clubs fail. That's had a knock-on effect on impact on other clubs within the English league system. We've got that stupid ring fencing, which I think has done more harm than good. Um, we've had salary cap breaches, all sorts. So we will, but that idea hasn't gone away. But I think when you have like a contagion, like financial collapses and all that, it does have a knock-on impact, and it could have been a lot worse. So again, be careful what you wish for. But any team could probably still beat Bath at the moment. Local club down the road probably beat them. And All Ireland Football League, yeah, but then there's that political and sectarian side to it, which would rear its ugly head, which is why Derry or Londonderry has 2 separate teams in 2 separate leagues, like Institute and Derry City play in different leagues, same level but different leagues because of the sectarian um, um, element. The Irish football leagues are still better than Wales by some margin. I'm not joking. Um, but again, this is where the UEFA coefficient has that negative impact, and this is where the modern era, or the satellite TV era, has benefited a handful of leagues over the majority, and that is the unfortunate reality that we currently face. And then you look at social media, and there are a lot of fans across Europe that regularly have anti UEFA banners, and they show their derision of UEFA, and UEFA are just as guilty as the club owners, just as guilty as any for chasing the money. And the UEFA coefficient, in my opinion, has a negative impact on leagues, and the quality of leagues, and growth and development, and unfortunately, that is the case. Ireland does not have a club the size of Cardiff. No, it does not. This is where the GAA and hurling and Gaelic football um, come into play. Um, and some of the hurling teams and Gaelic football teams get big crowds in Cardiff and Swansea quite regularly. That's why Croke Park is the biggest stadium in Ireland. It's a GAA stadium. Do Irish football fans follow Scottish football Premier League? It's a mix. Irish football fans, it's a big mix. Both north and south of the border, it's a massive mix because you have the Northern Irish clubs with their league system. Then you've got Derry or Londonderry that are split, with Institute being in the Northern Irish league system and Derry City being in the Southern Irish league system, again, political reasons. And then you've got the League of Ireland um, and then their clubs like Cork uh, oh God, I've got some of the bloody names of the clubs in Ireland now, which I'll have to look. But then you've got the clubs in Southern Ireland, like Cork City, for example, one of the big clubs in Ireland, a very successful club in Ireland, and uh, it's a very mixed one. It's very mixed. There's a lot who are Celtic fans, Rangers fans, Hibs, Wolves get a lot of Irish following. That's the Robbie Keane connection there. Nottingham Forest have a big Irish following because of Roy Keane. Um, I think a lot of clubs in the West Midlands have a good, solid Irish fan base. There's a big Irish community in the West Midlands, anyway, historically. Um, Liverpool and Everton have a lot of Irish fans. Um, so it's a very mixed. There isn't really a Man United and Liverpool, obviously in the Premier League, Rangers and Celtic and Hibs and Hearts and Scotland have that connection. But there's no one club. I mean, it's just what I find with Irish sports fans, and I found this in recent weeks in some of my content, is they seem to be the best educated, most tolerant, ironically, that I've come across, and the friendliest. They seem to be a very well educated sports fan base, very well educated. Um, Now, that's my viewpoint on Irish sports fans. They seem to be very well rounded, respectful, well educated, a wide range of sports knowledge, more than just your hurling or your Gaelic football or your rugby union or your association football. They really are a really interesting bunch of sports fans. I like the way they are the most tolerant, acceptable as other Irish people. Yes, yes, this is quite interesting. Irish history is quite interesting because the Irish hate each other, then they hate the Brits, then they just yeah, and then yeah, they are a very interesting bunch, the Irish. But when it comes to sports fandom, sports debate about all sports, they'll be the most keen to learn about sports that are non-traditional sports to them. So outside of your Gaelic Athletic Association, hurling, Gaelic football, outside of rugby union, and to a certain extent association football, they will be willing to learn and watch anything. They will happily sit down with you and go and ask the questions, um, and want to learn and want to engage. That's what I found. Now, whether they become hardened fans of the AFL or rugby league is another thing. But they're willing to give it a try. They're willing to understand. They ask the questions. There is no stupid question, by the way, no silly question. They're willing to go, right, okay, what are the structures of this sport? They are willing to learn. A lot of Irish people continue to watch my content, even though it's not always rugby union or international football. Uh, I will be doing a video on Croke Park. I will be doing a video on hurling. I will be doing a video on Gaelic football. I'll be looking at the Gaelic football players that have gone to play in the AFL. I think that's a good place to start with that. I will be looking at the history of Croke Park from foundation till now, and I'll be looking at the structures of the GAA, its current structure, who's in charge of what, the organisation, and its remit, and why the GAA sports is still amateur. And hurling, I will just do my best to understand hurling because I don't have a fucking clue. We'll discuss it with the Welsh Rugby Union. I'm not one of those defensive Welsh rugby fans. I have a love-hate relationship with Welsh rugby fans, I'm afraid. Um, Over recent years, I lost some subscribers because I criticised Warren Gatland. Honestly, unfortunately, Welsh rugby fans are the most toxic sports fans I've ever come across as a group, and it is a large vocal minority. They've given me the most abuse. They're the least tolerant I've come across. They've got a massive chip on their shoulder, and they don't support the domestic game in enough numbers, but they turn out the international side, but they don't support the regions or the local club game. So you've got those fair weather fans. It's a minority, but it's enough to make it an uncomfortable minority, to make it a pleasant sports debate turn into, well, I think I'll have to dig out the comments that I've received and some of the reviews I've received of Welsh rugby fans from about 4 or 5 years ago, right up till about, I'm going to say present day. They are the most toxic fan base I've come across. Now, I'm not saying all Welsh sports fans are, because I know, Tommy, you're not. I've got a fair few Welsh subscribers on the channel. But Welsh Rugby Union fans, they're nasty people. And it's a minority, but it's enough for me to go, that's a fan base I don't like. And I can sit around the table with any sports fan from any country, and the Welsh are the worst. Simple. Simple. I've never had a I've never had a pleasant sports debate or sports discussion in person at a pub or a sports bar with a Welsh sports fan, and they're always rugby union fans as well, and it always seems to have that nasty element to it. But what I've had from my club history when it comes to football, and my match reviews when it comes to football, and my match reviews when it comes to rugby league, is those Welsh fans pleasant as anything, willing to engage. Whereas the Welsh Rugby Union fans, from my experience, a fair proportion of them are not very nice. And that's me being nice. That's me being polite for YouTube purposes, because I have to swear so much. I follow the new regulations, you see. So there we go. I've had a bit. I've got a very negative impression of Welsh Rugby Union fans. They on social media they are a vile bunch, from my experience. Should the principality staking be used more? It's used, and it is used a lot. I think what would benefit Welsh rugby more is to take internationals to some of the provincial stadiums, like Swansea, like Newport, like Llanelli, to try and engage with fans in those locations. But take games to Wrexham, for example, I think that would do wonders for trying to grow the game in Central and North Wales rugby union. And they are trying to bring it back up to international standards. But the Welsh Union aren't brave enough. Gatland's had his day a long time ago. There's a reason why he wasn't coached for the last 3 years. Sports moved on. He hasn't. I think Welsh fans would have supported their local teams more if the professionals would handle better. Yeah, the first 4 or 5 years of professionalism was disastrous for Welsh Rugby Union, and it's never fully recovered. And the fact there are very few promising young players coming through for Wales. It's not looking bright. Neither Scotland as well. This is with that debate about Georgia should be in the situation to kick Italy out. I think in about 4 years' time you'll be regretting that because Scotland and Wales will be wooden spoonies quite regularly. Um, yeah, Welsh football fans they were good fun at the World Cup. They were, and a lot of positive raving reviews about them from other fans and locals. Yes, that's been well noted that they were very, very well behaved and respectful and good value for their money. Anyway. Also, where in the north, uh, where is the north representation? It doesn't exist because the Welsh Union, much like the RFL and Rugby League, doesn't believe union fans and players come from there. Like the RFL don't believe people like me exist in the south of England. We don't support rugby league, apparently. We do. You've just mishandled the Scholars and the Broncos and growing the game south of Wakefield. Um, I think it's amazing Newport Dragons have as many fans as they do, considering the team is crap. Uh, they've got a nice stadium, right? Good sized stadium. Yeah, the Newport Gwent Dragons, um, the teams that went before, um, the turn to professionalism, the regional model. Um, it was Newport originally that started struggling financially. That ultimately led to the regions being brought in and the financial mess that Welsh Rugby's been in for the last 20 years. Yeah, I mean, well, Colwyn Bay. I mean, yeah, you could say that, but there is a lack of interest from the Welsh Union to invest and grow the game in North Wales properly. Um, because the Welsh Union believes there aren't Welsh fans up there, rugby fans up there, which is a lie. The problem is that part of Wales is sparsely populated for large portions, not a lot of money. Um, is it financially viable to expand there? Have I been to Wales? Yeah, I've been to central Wales, just over the Hereford border. Um, I've been across the border from Herefordshire a long, long time ago when I was a very kid. I really don't want to go back. Um, as I say, my experience with some of the Welsh community has not been great. Um, and I have no desire to go to Wales, really. I think, yeah, Powys is a nice part of the world. Very rural, but it's a nice part of the world. Um, but I have no desire or need to go to Wales. I want to go to Wales. Um, oh, my neighbours put their washing machine on. Oh, it's not right then. But I was only a little kid at the time. When I was in Shropshire, I was on the Welsh border for a day. We went for a day out, so I think I went into Wales. What's the county that borders Shropshire? Powys. It's not Flint. It's the one below Flint. And my neighbour's washing machine is on, so that's fun. But it's been, I mean, that was a long time ago. I think the last time I was close to Wales was in like 1997. So it's been a very, very long time 25, 26 years since, yeah, so that's a long time ago. But I have no desire to go. Well, I have no need to go to Wales. I don't want to go to Wales. Been a long time, long, long time. And if I'm honest, Wales, while the North and Central Wales are absolutely beautiful, no doubt they're actually a stunning part of the world. Um, stunning, stunning location. Um, any highland area in Europe looks like North Wales, Snowdon. Um, and I'm not intending to do the Three Peaks Challenge anytime soon either. So I'm not intending to go up Snowdon, Skyfell Pike, and Ben Nevis anytime soon either. So I have no need. But again, as I reiterate, that is part of the problem. Is apart from tourism, for example, in parts of Wales, the economy is based on agriculture. There's not a lot of money in agriculture, really, disposable income for employees. So that's another reason why professional sport struggles badly. Um, and when you don't have people in a sports market where you're trying to target placing a professional team to spend money, you're not going to make money. I see Snowdon from my house. I'm on the side of Anglesey near Gwynedd. Novelty goes wherever you live, but it is nice. Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm 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 down the road from Windsor Castle and Windsor Great Park. I used to work at Windsor. I used to see Windsor Castle twice a week. No, it's not. Windsor Castle was actually on my bin round for a while. The road opposite. I used to be in Windsor on a weekly basis. The novelty wears off. The novelty wears off. Windsor Great Park, the novelty wore off a long time ago. I mean, I think that's another part of the problem is parts of Wales is very, very remote. So if you want to grow a sport at any level, employment, disposable income. North Wales doesn't have that. North and Central Wales does not have employment opportunities, which means any potential fan doesn't have disposable income. Most of the jobs outside of tourism, as I say, are in agriculture and agriculture related industries where the pay is crap. Take home pay is crap. Yeah, there isn't, and that's I think that's the reason why there aren't any professional sports teams in North Wales. There isn't the fan base to sustain it. If you have an opportunity, you move to where the work is. It's the same with like Highland Scotland. It's the same with large portions of like Cornwall and Devon and Somerset. The young people have left. Um, so it's no so, and this is where I think professional sport in Wales and people don't realise this. People think, oh, it's a big part of the world. Oh, love to live there. When you actually do go there, and there's apart from climbing Snowdon every day, there's not a lot to do. And that is a massive, massive problem. Is there isn't reasons to stay long term. Um, and that's an issue when you are a sports governing body wanting to invest in new areas. You're limited with the disposable income of the people you want to, give them a team. There was that idea to have that Crusaders team again, another team in North. Didn't work the first time because there's no money. Um, no, they won't build a motorway because it's got the Snowdon National Park and areas of outstanding national beauty and wildlife areas, and then you've got to get hold of all the different landowners. People start willing to sell up, um, and the motorway wouldn't be economically viable anyway, um, because not many people would use it. Um, and that's a big infrastructure project, which is just not feasible with the money. Um, Everyone in the Wirral seems to have a Welsh grandparent. Yeah, but again, this is an issue that a lot of sports markets have. You look at the US and Canada. There's a reason why Quebec doesn't have a team in the NHL. It is the smallest major market in Canada. There's a reason why Saskatchewan, so Saskatoon, for example, and Regina don't have an NHL team. Smaller market. There's a reason why large portions of the US don't have a major sports league team. Population size. So there's like 20. I think there's 20 states that don't have a major league sports franchise in the US. 20 states do not have a major league sports franchise. And it's to do with disposable income or population size or population density. Is a big reason why. Not just the corporate sponsorship, it's to do with population density, population size, and disposable income. Mississippi, for example, doesn't have a professional sports team because it's the state. Arkansas does not have a major sports team. So, and people think so North Wales not having a professional team of any kind in rugby union or rugby league or football doesn't surprise me. There just is not the disposable income and the population density to support it being successful. Right, I've got here people sending me stuff. Anyway, I thought I'll do it's crazy states like Kentucky or Connecticut. No, Connecticut, half of Wales moved in 1998, I believe. Yep. Connecticut doesn't have one. I think Kentucky. No, Kentucky doesn't have one. No. Wyoming doesn't have one. Idaho, I believe, has an AHL or ECHL franchise, which is sort of minor major league, but is it Boise Copperheads or something? Or Steelheads? I think they're in the AHL. Montana, Arkansas, Mississippi, but Alabama, South Carolina technically, although the Carolina Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes are going to cover both Carolinas, so there's that. Virginia, West Virginia, Maine, New Hampshire, Delaware, Vermont, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota. There's loads of them, loads of states though. And it is to do with disposable income, population size, population density, and corporate money. Although imagine like New Hampshire or is it Vermont with Ben and Jerry's one, that'd be hilarious. Washington DC is actually Maryland, by the way, technically, and Washington DC is not actually a state. And Maryland is the side of the river that the Washington Commanders is on, of the Potomac. They're on the north side of the Potomac, which is Maryland, not Virginia. Sorry, wrong side of the Potomac there. Got to know your geography. Rugby World Cup predictions. I think it's too early. I think I'm wondering if Ireland and France have peaked a bit too soon. I'm saying that I think this is the best French team we've ever seen, the best Irish team we've ever seen. So we shall see. I think South Africa looking vulnerable. I think Australia with Eddie Jones, that's an unknown. The All Blacks are looking human. Argentina look pretty good. I think this could be a very open World Cup. I think we're going to see some shocks. I think we're going to see some sides do better than we expect, and some other sides do worse than we expect. But I think we're too far out to really get an adequate idea. Although looking at the form guide and how teams have been playing over the last year, 18 months, I would not be surprised if Ireland and France both make the semi-final, possibly the final. I wouldn't be surprised if Argentina do what they did in 2007 World Cup and go on a run. I really wouldn't be surprised at all. Um, yeah, this if they don't get past the quarterfinals this time, they never will. This is the best opportunity Ireland have to not only get to a semi-final but get to a final. The difference with Rugby Union World Cups and Six Nations is the intensity of games. You don't get a couple of rest weeks. You play a game, basically a game a week. You're playing constantly, and this is where Ireland just run out of steam because it's sort of quarterfinal, sort of like Six Nations esque kind of limit of, and then they drop off. Um, but no, this is the best Irish side I think we've ever seen, in my opinion. Irish sides in the past would have not won the grand would not have won the Grand Slam at the weekend. So that. It would be nice to see sport in Wales improve outside of, Cardiff and Swansea and Newport. Wrexham is obviously a unique situation with the football club, but other than that, it would be nice to see sport in Wales improve. But there isn't the population or the disposable income for it to work, and that's not being harsh, but it's the facts. The economics basically mean it won't work. Anyway, I'm going to call that a day because it's getting go. I will finish on the Wrexham question. Yes, I think they will win the National League and get automatic promotion. Um, and then sky's the limit with Wrexham. Then I think yes, they will get, get not only win the league but get automatic promotion, get out the National League and back into the Football League. And I do honestly believe the goal that Ryan Reynolds has is to make the Premier League at some point. Um, that could take it could take as little as 5, 10 years. They could be a Premier League side. I don't think that happens, but I think their model they want to do it sustainably. Um, I think they've accepted there's going to be some ups and downs along the way, um, but I can see Wrexham getting further up the Football League pyramid than people realise. But anyway, I'm going to leave that there. Thank you very much for watching, placing your thoughts below, and I will some more content for you very, very soon.